we've had two perfect moments in this podcast. The first is when we escaped Monarch. The other was when you went to patreon.com/WhatSusCastProductions to support our show. For less than the cost of telling crime to shut up, you can get early access, bonus content, and exclusive episodes just for you. And these perfect moments will help inform our day and set this show in the right direction. Again, that's patreon.com/WhatSusCastProductions. You can't know for sure unless you try.
Hello, this is AJ of the Iowa Film Critics Association. We, Heroes of Cinema, of course, have formed this league in order to right the wrongs of the pretenders, and to showcase the best of cinema, and to punish those who... Ryan! Stop! You're killing him!
What? I didn't know I wasn't supposed to kill him. I mean, I'm just learning on a podcast. You have to teach me these things.
God damn it, how are we supposed to give these demands to other critic associations? They won't take us seriously. Now we gotta bury our body. But first, let's get this show on the road. Hi everybody, how you doing? This is the After Credits Cast. Today's intro was Calling All Destroyers by Czar. Intro onto this episode, intro onto the movie, which is perfectly fine. If you want to follow us on various platforms of choice, you certainly can. That includes Patreon, YouTube, Acast, Apple and Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and many, many more. Google us, you will find us. Ryan, if they want to email us directly with any questions or concerns or challenges to the throne, where can they email us at?
They can email us at secondhandembarrassment at excuse me, sorry. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
Indeed. Yeah, this is a movie we're doing today. It's called we're continuing the James Gunn season with Super. Just called Super. No man, no 8, no what's another Super movie? Bad. It's not bad either. It's just Super.
Super Pat?
No, Bad. B-A-D.
Ah, gotcha.
I'm trying to think of other movies with Super. Mario. It's not Mario either. So, it's from 2010. This film made only 422,000, which is only 17% of what the film cost. Yep.
That's I understand. I do understand.
Yeah, it's definitely a what do you call it? An acquired, not even acquired taste, but I think maybe just a. I don't think they knew who the target audience was at first, and it just never hit. It never landed with the audience it needed to.
I don't know if there was a target audience.
I feel a little bad.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there.
There's a cast to it though. A pretty good cast, I'd say, including Paul T. Taylor, Grant Goodman, Gerardo Davila, Nathan Fillion, of course, Linda Cardellini. Cardellini. I don't know why my brain shut off there for a minute.
Cardellini?
Don Mack, Stephen Blakeheart. I'm sure it's... Is it Blackheart? Did I just put an extra E in there?
I think it's Blackheart, Don.
I think I put an extra E in there by accident. Sean Gunn, Andre Royo, Michael Rooker, Greg Henry, Kevin Breakfast, Liv Taylor, Elliot Page, and the acting manager of Dunder Mifflin Scranton Branch, Rainn Wilson.
Liv Taylor surprised the hell out of me. I was not expecting to see Liv Taylor in this movie.
I appreciate when she shows up, though. She's fun.
Yeah.
This only won one award from an AQCC from the Fantasia Film Festival for director to James Gunn.
All right. I mean, I like call this film what you will, but it's definitely quintessential James Gunn. Whether or not that's a good thing.
You can feel his fingerprints on it for sure.
Yes, you could definitely feel his fingerprints on it.
Ryan, do you have some fun facts for me?
I do. I have 3, in fact. James Gunn first started working on the screenplay of this in 2002. He found he had a hard time getting it made as many of the producers he approached found it too violent. Interesting.
Huh.
Just your protagonist walking up to some asshole in line and splitting his fucking head open.
Or dropping a cinder block on someone from 3 stories up.
Yeah, God. Oh, man. What?
I have words.
Okay.
I have words.
Next up, the role of Jacques was supposed to be played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. Oh my god, I would have died. It was supposed to be played by Jean-Claude Van Damme up until a week before shooting began. Gunn said the guy was kind of AWOL. I just couldn't risk that personality type on the movie. So Kevin Bacon stepped in as a last-minute replacement. I love Kevin Bacon in this, but I feel cheated. I wanted to see Van Damme do this now that I just heard about it.
I would love to see that alternate reality, but I think Kevin Bacon does a great job.
Yeah. Final fun fact, Rainn Wilson came to the project via Jenna Fisher's relationship with her ex-husband, James Gunn. Gunn was discussing his script with Fisher and asked her to take a look at it, sending her a copy on the set of The Office in 2005. Fisher read the script, loved it, and thought Wilson would be a great choice as the lead. She gave the script to her coworker, and Wilson immediately decided to make the film. Not only did he accept the role immediately after reading it, he also sent a script to his friend, Elliot Page, whom he worked with on Juno in 2007. Elliot also immediately accepted.
That's a fun one right there. I like that one.
Yeah.
Also, welcome to the show where we talk about Office Facts. Tune in next week when we talk about Jim Halpert. Actually, we probably will, because we'll be getting pretty close to doing The Quiet Place too.
The Quiet Place, yeah. Like you joke, but we are straying close to the truth there.
We'll do some initial thoughts real quick. I think it's fun. I understand though it's really hard to watch because there's some very awkward humor and some incredibly surprisingly intense violence. Like more than I expected to from this movie, but I still had fun with what it was.
Yeah. This was a tough watch for me. Not so much because of the violence, although the violence definitely kind of came out of left field in terms of the degree of it. It's still, like, I could feel what Gunn was going for in terms of kind of blurring the line between, like, comic book violence and real life violence and showing exactly how violent comic books would be if applied to a normal setting. So I was with it, even though some of it was just like, oh my god. The super awkward humor was killing me. I had to pause multiple times and take a quick lap around my couch just to try and get through it. 'Cause that's really not my stuff. It's really not my kind of humor. But I had to grit my teeth and go through it.
You bring up the violence thing. It actually reminds me a lot of Kick-Ass a little bit.
Yeah. Except I feel it's more,
I think Kick-Ass embraces it more and has a lot more fun with it, whereas this one kind of can't.
It feels like, how do I want to put it? Kick-Ass, like, it definitely plays up the gratuitous violence, but I feel like it hides it a little more in camp. Like, it kind of lessens the realistic, like, blow of it, whereas you have Elliot Page literally with, like, a quarter of her head blown off in one of the days. It's just like, yeesh! Like, I feel like Gunn doesn't really pull the punches.
He never does.
With some of this particular violence. So, like, while excuse me, while something similar is done in Kick-Ass, this definitely has a grittier, or at least a sharper feel to it.
Yeah, I could feel that. I think the only time he's ever really held back is when he's working with Disney for the Guardians of the Galaxy, because they kind of have restrictions on what he can do for the PG-13 rating. But aside from that, though, yeah, he's pretty much like, wherever I want to go, I'm going to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have got a synopsis here for you, Ryan. Are you ready?
I am.
Emotionally stunted man, Frank Darbo, has lost his wife and is not really quite sure why. He finds out that the eternal villain is Kevin Breakfast took her. He goes to the police and even begs Sarah to come home, but nothing works. Then God speaks to him through a low-budget children's program to become a superhero to fight against injustice. Going to a local comic shop, he asks Libby to assist in putting together his persona. Sort of. He becomes the Crimson Bolt, and starts beating people to near death for anything he believes is a crime. This gets him on the news as a psychopath. Libby eventually joins his crew as Bolty, and she takes things a step too far. A few times. In different ways. We will get there. Frank and Libby eventually find out where the Bacon is keeping Sarah, who has been given drugs to keep her sedated and given to other crime lords for their pleasure without her consent. Frank and Libby strap up and do an assault on the Bacon estate. Libby is shot, killed. Frank goes absolutely postal and kills everyone before getting Sarah and Xavier. Sarah still leaves after some time, but she gets herself back mentally and returns to school to start her and starts a real family and raises kids somewhere else. But she is still thankful for what Frank did for the rescue, and her kids think of him as a weird uncle they never see. Also, Frank has a new pet rabbit.
Jesus Christ. What the hell is this movie?
Okay. I'm saving the talk about Libby for a little later, because it's heavy. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's start with the very first question that I think is on everyone's mind. Is Sarah right to leave Frank? And was it really the best way was the way she did it really the best way to do it? Why or why not?
Well, I think she's absolutely in her rights to leave Frank, because the realistic part of this is that he actually went on a kill crazy rampage and murdered a bunch of people.
Well, I'm asking more particularly at the beginning of the film.
Oh, okay. I took that as like she leaves at the beginning of the film because, you know, she relapses, and that sucks. It sucks for everybody involved, because Frank was left with literally nothing to go on, and actually thought she was kidnapped for a while, which actually made a little bit of sense until you really started putting the pieces together. Like, oh, she took her clothes with her. Oh, she's an oh, fuck. Oh, man. When Jacques first shows up, and then it's revealed, right after he showed up, a couple days later she was gone, I wondered if they were actually going, the real, the comic book route of, this is a bad guy from her past that's hinting towards, a dangerous lifestyle, and she has to leave in order to keep Frank from, getting caught up in her mess, and da-da-da-da-da. And they just really, they made it much more, realistic and grounded in the fact that she relapsed, and she went back with her drug dealer boyfriend. So that sucks. I don't think there's anything right to that, because it just sucks, really.
Yeah. I read it more as she chose to. I think I read it more as she chose to leave, but because she got caught up in the life again at the same time. I think it kind of happens. I don't know. We didn't get to see much of her story. I think that's part of the problem. I'd have loved to have seen the minute where she made the choice. I don't need to see a full scene, but just a minute where she makes the choice to leave Frank. Was it just the relationship not working? Was it also the drugs? Was it him was it Bacon being a little too aggressive and forceful? There's a lot of things that could have been, and we don't get to see enough behind the scenes to know what actually happened there.
Yeah. I like that the view as the audience, you don't get a whole bunch of rationalization because it's primarily from Frank's point of view. You do get a couple of bits of knowledge that Frank would not know, and that's just to kind of keep the plot moving along and to inform you of what's happening behind the scenes a little bit, and just to have some funny scenes. But for the majority of it, the audience knows largely what Frank knows, and that's because Frank sees the world differently. So I felt like not being completely privy to Sarah's thought process made a lot of sense based on our point of view. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of Frank's point of view, do you think Frank has some form of autism?
Absolutely. Oh, man. Oh, 100%.
And follow-up question, do you think he's in need of desperate help?
Uh, I feel, ooh. I think I think the way the movie ends make like it calls that into question, because left to his own devices, he actually went insane and started like assaulting and killing people. But at the end of it, he kind of found his own peace and solace, and like kind of reached equilibrium by himself. So I don't know if professional help hurts more than it helps at the end of that, when it's all said and done. You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe, but the last thing you want to have is have him relapse to do something else crazy. Now, he doesn't...
Yeah.
He doesn't have anyone to... Well, okay, I don't know what happens if the rabbit dies, but currently there's no one else, theoretically, that could cause him to do that, but you'd hate to see it happen. So it's like one of those things like, it's probably better safe than sorry to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, he it seems that like after it's all said and done, he kind of finds peace and is able to be to live his life a bit more. So it kind of seems like he's got a fuller life and can actually talk with people, but you're absolutely right. If something else goes wrong, that's going to be more people assaulted with a fucking wrench, and that's going to be bad. That's going to be bad news. So you're probably right. It's probably better for him to talk to somebody just in case.
And of course, we're not saying this as a general response to anyone with autism. It's just that in this particular case, we do see him commit violent acts. We do see him kill people. So yes, we've already got proof he is a very unstable person when pushed in the wrong direction. So definitely in this particular case, it's just precaution is all it is, really. Brian, how far would you go to save someone you think was taken from you?
I mean, I would definitely like. I think I would put the pieces together a bit quicker once I came to realize it. And at the end of the day, like at the end of the day, people make their own choices. And as soon as it became apparent that she left of her own accord, I would just have to write her off, particularly because of my own experiences with people with addiction. And sometimes it's while people with addiction absolutely need love and help, that is a lot of pressure to put on people to care for them, and I think everybody has to kind of make their own choice when that happens. So yeah, I don't know. I just took that in a completely different way. I'm so sorry.
No, I think it's fair to take it however, whichever way you want to do it. I also have lived through someone close to me, my brother, of course, going through addiction problems and constantly hitting rock bottom and constantly needing to be picked back up. And yeah, I know what you're talking about to an extent. If it were someone who I actually believe could be saved, then yeah, I would say definitely I would do what I could to at least make the attempt, but I don't know if I'd go full commando and rampage into a building.
Yeah, I don't think I'd start learning how to build pipe bombs, and like I don't just like
wait,
start
learning.
That's a joke, FBI. That's a joke. We're playing around. It's a podcast. Y'all need calm down.
Tune in next week. We talk about making. No, never mind. I'm done. Yeah, no, I think that's my 2 cents on that one there. Right, here's a question I think is a bit more on the point. Why weren't the cops able to narrow down the search results to Frank when it came to this, red-clad assailant in town? From what I gathered, this was a small town, so it shouldn't have been that difficult to figure out who it was.
Honestly, I'm not sure. I feel like I feel like connecting the dots to Frank was a bit of a stretch because Frank is so unassuming and like pretty much unnoticed by everybody who doesn't like interact with him like directly. The only reason the detective figured it out is because he's actually talked to him and knows how fucking weird he is, and then started to put two to two together. He said, "Oh shit, yeah, nope, he's going nuts. All right, let's go try to stop that from happening."
Well, so the reason I bring it up is because, so one, we get the small town vibes because, like, the girl who runs or owns the comic book shop knows the guy who's the fry cook in the building across the street. Like, that's the kind of thing you only really get in small towns, I think.
Yeah.
Two, he uses his own car to get away, and his license plates are super visible. Certainly, someone would have seen him in his plates.
Absolutely, yeah.
And on top of that, too, when he attacks the guy who cuts in line, he literally changed his costume in front of people, basically. And the guy even says, "I know who you are," and everyone else in line should be able to pick him out, too. And again, license plate is super visible in the daylight. Like, all of this stuff, I'm just sitting here like, how has no one caught you yet, bro? This is nonsense.
I think it's pure plot convenience, but it also kind of just plays into the ridiculousness of the movie, because he absolutely should have been caught several times over.
And I have to think too.
He should have either been caught or killed like several times over.
Well, on top of that too, I'm thinking in a small town, there's got to be at least a cop on patrol somewhere. Just doing the rounds around town. Certainly, especially on the street that everyone said was like the bad street, so to speak. You'd think that someone would have seen it by then, at least. That's so weird.
I think it's purely for plot and ridiculousness.
It has to be. That's what it has to be. It kind of kills suspension of disbelief a little bit, but it also is kind of funny. I don't know.
Did you have a suspension of disbelief in this movie?
Well, no, it's just one of those things that really stands out as like, oh, this kind of kills any illusion.
God in heaven.
Speaking of killing illusions, Ryan, we have to talk about the elephant in the room.
Oh boy.
So
it's a very small and frail elephant, but surely there.
So I don't really have a specific question because I don't know where to start with this. So let's just talk about Libby's character and her problematic self in general.
Yeah. I feel like Libby also has some form of undiagnosed autism.
I really hate...
Or just something, something's going, like some type of misfire is happening.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, there's something wrong with her too that just screams she needs help. There's the obsession with comics and treating it as if it's like a real deal, which is not super uncommon, but she definitely takes it to an nth degree. There's the very much prone to violence and willing to almost murder someone for keying a friend's car.
Yeah, it quickly became apparent that it was just the moment she had a half-assed excuse to just give in to all the violence that she was feeling, she was off running.
And I have to wonder more about her background, like, where does that come from, and why has she not attempted to deal with this before?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's somewhat of a form of masking that, like, she understands that it's not acceptable in normal society, but the moment that she's given the excuse to put on a mask and be someone else. So it's Bolty that almost caved this dude's face in, or it's Bolty that just slashed this guy's chest wide the fuck open with Wolverine claws,
which was kind of cool.
It becomes apparent.
Well, speaking of using a persona as a excuse to do questionable things, let's talk about the scene where she kind of forces herself on top of Frank.
Oh man. This was also really fucking with me because, like, personally, I'm attracted to Elliot Page, and I'm like, Oh God, I don't like this. But no, I don't like this. This is bad.
Kind of poisoned the well a little bit, didn't they?
A little bit. A little bit.
Yeah, so for those who have not seen the movie, there's a scene in which Frank is trying to sleep, and Bolty, as she chooses to go by, enters the room and dances around a little bit provocatively and basically says, hey, just do me because, you know, I'm here and you're here, let's just do it. And then she just kind of gets on top of him and just makes it happen, and yeah, that's how that scene goes.
Oh man, that's rough, and especially after this actually goes back to the idea of like going past an alternate identity, like going like doing unacceptable things under the guise of being somebody else when you have the mask on. Like her whole justification is, you know, like, I know that Frank is married, but Frank is married to Sarah, but the Crimson Bolt isn't married to Sarah, so just put this mask on and let's do this. And she just she forces herself on him, and it's not a great look. It's definitely indicative to like the deeper things that she has going on in her head, and this whole, you know, like unacceptable urges, and rather than addressing them and dealing with them in a healthy way, she looks for excuses to indulge. Yeah. It's just not great, man. It's just not great.
Now, is this another one of those examples of comedians trying to shove this sort of stuff in their script and it does not fly at all? Or do you think this is something else in terms of what's happening in the film?
I mean, I don't think that this is played for laughs, you know? I think it's an intentional flaw of the character, and that James Gunn is not trying to shy away from that. I think if you really break down the behaviors in comic books and like comic book heroes and whatnot in particular, you'll find a lot of stuff that if you applied it to real life is absolutely not great. And this movie does a great job of kind of shining a light on that and not shying away from certain things that would have to be true if we were to take the comic book parallel to its logical conclusion.
So do you have an example from the comic books, if I may ask? I mean, I'm just kind of curious what you might be thinking in particular.
Well, I mean, okay, take Batman for instance.
Okay.
Like we know from the comics that Gotham is, you know, a crime-riddled place where like the villainous prey on the innocent, da 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 da, and one man decides to take the law into his own hands and stand up against all that's unjust in the city full of injustice, right? Mm-hmm. And it's played up as heroic. In reality, this is a rich white dude who puts on half of a mask and then brutally beats people to within an inch of their life, stopping so that he doesn't kill them, but surely hospitalizing them and and inflicting injuries that will last for a long time. They're criminals, but at the end of the day, there's not a whole bunch difference to the Crimson Bolt walking up to the drug dealer and splitting his fucking skull open with a wrench.
Fair. You know, in 2021, I did not expect to see two movies in one year that would be about women on men's sexual assault.
Yep.
I just did not expect it to be a thing. I will say that I agree with you. This one definitely feels like it's less of a joke than it was in Coming to America 2.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
So I'll give them the credit here. But it still is not a subject that I guess just any kind of sexual assault feels weird, and seeing it happen here just also seems weird. I don't really know how to describe it. Like, I don't know. I don't see a lot of the things that feature sexual assault too much, right? I don't know if you have. I know Game of Thrones has stuff like this, right?
Yes.
So, like, is it any better in Game of Thrones, or is it still very awkward to watch?
It's still really bad. I mean, you don't get a lot of female on male sexual assault in Game of Thrones, but just the concept of sexual assault in general is bad, and it's not a light matter. I don't think it's addressed lightly in Game of Thrones, but it absolutely is kind of painted as par for the course in that setting, like in that type of medieval setting where women have like little to no power in terms of relationships between men and women. And whether or not you think that is an acceptable excuse to feature such graphic violence against women is absolutely your call. But I don't think it's played lightly in Game of Thrones, and I don't think it's played lightly here because it's weird and it's awkward, and like Elliot Page is hot, but like none of that can cover up the fact of what's happening there. Like the wrongness of it kind of cuts through all of that. So I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, well, and I get that in something like Game of Thrones, it's usually used as a way to paint someone as being more of a villain.
Right. Or given as some type of horrible ordeal that only that ends up making the female in this stronger. So, I don't know.
Yeah. This is definitely a subject that I don't think we can properly address here.
Right.
But I do like that we're at least trying to address bits and pieces of it. I don't know. I would love to get someone on this this show, whether it's this episode or a pre-roll episode, just to kind of dive more into the nuances and figure out, is this sort of action acceptable in any media, or is it a step too far, or what? Like, I'd be curious to see the general thoughts on it for sure.
Please hit us up in the comments and in the email below. I really, really would like to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
Absolutely, because this is a subject that I don't like talking about, but because it's been brought up twice, it kind of has to be something we address at some point. Yeah, and we're usually jokes and glib humor here, so we want to address it in a respectful, proper way and not, like, make a dick joke about it, because that seems like an easy way out for us.
Yeah.
Moving on to a more lighthearted and somewhat questionable subject. Does this film seem to be critical of religious-based programming or religious stuff targeting children?
The Holy Avenger. Oh my God,
yep.
Nathan Fillion. Thanks, guy. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Captain Hammer. I think so. I think it's very interesting to make the importance of religion in Frank's mind the catalyst for all of these horrible things. Especially because, like, that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only real reference to religion that's made in the movie. Nobody else really has anything to do with religion, but whenever it's brought up, it's either directly linked to how shitty Frank's life has been in the past, or whatever crazy misfiring in his mind decided to say, hey, go beat people with a wrench. That is what God wants you to do. It's just like, eesh. Like using that particularly as a catalyst absolutely seems aimed at religion.
And what's funny is, if you just take the religious programming at its face value, it's not telling him to do anything, but he's just super misinterpreting it as a means to go commit violence. And it's like, I'm just trying to sit here and think. I know it's a character. I know it's a story written by a guy in Hollywood, so I know it's not real. But like, if this guy was real, I'm trying to figure out where the disconnect is. Like, how do you get from point A to point B, and not have something in the middle that kind of segues that better? Because you go from, hokey guy with a cross on his chest beating up a fake devil James Gunn to using a wrench to beat up people who cut in line. Like that seems insane to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's very. I also like the way you put it, because the program in and of itself is not telling him to do anything, but people use the programming and use religion in general as a means to justify horrible, violent acts.
Oh, you don't say.
And so in light, if you remove Frank Darbo's character from it, you have a very ridiculous, very campy show where Nathan Fillion gets to play a religious superhero in the midst of just nonsense, just the worst type of Sunday school cartoon vibes, and you kind of have that as the stand-in for religion in general, but it's used as a catalyst to excuse these horrific acts. And so I think he's definitely throwing some shade at Christianity here. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, what you say makes perfect sense. Like, you hear stories all the way back from the Holy Crusades to modern day trans and gay bashing, from the uber Christian right people, using religion as a means to say, hey, you can't do this, or hey, this is our place, or etc., etc. And yeah, that is, I know this is a very general way of speaking, but it's stuff like that throughout history and in current times that has turned me off of religion in general. I don't think it's turned me off of any spiritual beliefs in general, but I think organized religion as a whole I've just stepped away from, because so many people use it to justify horrible things and say and do horrible things, and I just I don't want to be associated with any of this. I'm stepping away.
Yeah, and it's it's that kind of stuff that makes me that gets me very mad at organized religion, because I am a Christian. I was my father's a Baptist minister, and personally I do believe, but it's the way the faith is used to excuse things that absolutely go against the message of Christianity that just blows my mind. I don't think I think it is the interpretation and the representation of the faith that really, really screws with the message of it. And so I try not to evangelize or anything. I just try to live my life in a way that would be befitting and is Christ-like. And I fail quite often, but I try, and that's kind of the point. And yeah, it's just, we're gonna go 8 different directions in this podcast tonight that I wasn't expecting on talking about.
Who would have thought that a comedy about a deranged serial killer / superhero would get us into some deep conversations like this?
Yeah.
The last question I got on here, unless you have something you want to add, should Sarah have turned Frank into the police in the end, and was she right to leave him again at the end?
Ooh, oh God, I don't see it being. Oof. Damn, because he surely assaulted just some people who were assholes and who weren't actually criminals. Actually assaulted them.
So in her defense, she's only aware of what happened at the estate, probably.
I mean, in the months afterwards?
Yes, in the months afterwards, she would have learned, but...
And hearing about the Crimson Bolt and whatnot, I don't know.
But at least in that first month, she would have only been aware of what happened in the estate, and would be trying to get herself mentally back in a good space. So,
right,
I wouldn't fault her for not turning him in right away.
I honestly, considering all of it, I don't think I'd fault her for not turning him in at all. Especially when, like if you think that, like, the reason that he took up this mantle and, like, kind of went off the deep end was because he was trying to save her. I don't think I see her turning him into the police, like, at all. Leaving, on the other hand, I definitely can understand because she it's kind of made apparent, lightly apparent, but apparent that she wasn't super happy originally in the relationship, and that she kind of hung her hopes of sobriety on Frank, and that led to some resentment and eventually to her falling off the deep end again. So needing to find the answers within herself and to get away from Frank to do it on her own absolutely makes sense. But also, Frank actually murdered like 20 people in the midst of, like, trying to save her, so wanting to get away from somebody who's now shown to be quite capable of terrible violence is also understandable.
I have to wonder if Frank actually has ever seen her kids, or if she's insisted on just staying away from him the whole time.
I don't see her actually bringing her children around him. I mean, I can absolutely buy her keeping in touch with him and her, like, letting him know, like, what's going on with her life and, like, the kids and the postcards. Like, I absolutely buy that because I think she bears no ill will towards Frank. I think she just can't be with Frank.
Fair. Yeah, that's really all I've got, Ryan. Is there anything you want to add to the conversation that I may have overlooked?
No, I think we managed to track this fucking ski shoot of a movie to its more important points. So yeah, I think we did a good job on that.
Yep. Well, this is the part where we do the mail call, and if you want to reach out to us on Tumblr, Twitter, or Facebook and tell us your thoughts on this film, your thoughts on sexual assault in general, maybe keep that as a private message. Just, keep it down the down low, and we'll have a real conversation. Or if you just want to talk to us in general about movies, or if you want to challenge me to the title of the Iowa Film Critics Association champion and commander, you can do so by reach us on social media platforms or emailing us. Ryan, what is that email?
That email is shutupcrime! Excuse me. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
Despite my misgivings with this movie, I do still like that line a lot. It's silly and dumb, and he delivers it perfectly.
Oh, man.
This is the part where we rank the show from platinum to trash on the colors in between. Ryan, if we were going to rank this movie, which we're going to, how would you rank this movie?
This is not everybody's cup of tea. It's
not.
It's really not. It's not a must-see, and it's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. If you enjoy particularly awkward and outlandish humor, that kind of presses the envelope in a lot of ways. It's like this is definitely an interesting movie to check out. I absolutely adore the music. That's what we forgot to talk about. Because this was definitely, like, after you mentioned it in
the intro,
Slither.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, after you mentioned it in Slither and brought it up with Guardians, like, it's absolutely apparent that music, at least in these, like, somewhat indie films, aside from Guardians of the Galaxy, is a huge part of James Gunn's directorial style. So, like, just having a whole animated dance scene to "Calling All Destroyers" as the intro shot was hilarious, and I absolutely loved it. I want to give this one a strong bronze, and not because I don't think it's well done, but because it's really not for everyone. It is very niche in terms of audience. The people who love this are going to love it because it's hilarious and ridiculous, but not everybody is going to find it hilarious and ridiculous.
I'm torn a little bit. I want to give it a silver because I am in that audience that thinks it's funny. Because I think if you like the Office-style humor, and if you like kick-ass level violence, this kind of hits both notes. It's very weird to combine those together, but it does hit both those notes. But I was not kind to Coming to America because of the female on male sexual assault. I don't particularly want to be kind to it here either, even though, yes, tonally speaking, it is doing it differently here. It's still not something I'm particularly down for seeing. Sexual assault in general is something I'm not really down for seeing, but this is also just super awkward, and I don't mean it to be a pun, but it kind of came off as one. My bad. So I'm probably going to lean with Ryan and say bronze, just because that's also probably going to trigger people, and that's probably something that you don't want to see if that's going to be a trigger for you.
Yeah.
So yeah. But overall still has some good comedy, and I think it still works on a lot of levels. Next week, if I have sketched this out correctly, you guys will get to listen to us talk about Brightburn, which, yes, there's an asterisk next to that one for this season. I'll explain why next week. Ryan, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I can't wait to get to next week, honestly.
All right, well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you after the credits.
Bye!
Where have all the good men gone?